when I first started YouTube, Instagram, whatever, I created brand new accounts, and obviously you put in your basic demographic information, whatever. And then, the content you get from there is just the base algorithm based off of what they know, right? Basically, your very vague demographic information. And I was blown away. I was appalled at how YouTube and Instagram both immediately send me, like, not just like vaguely manly masculine content, but like straight up misogynistic, like manosphere, like unironically Andrew Tate content. And like that was it. Like that was the majority of what I was sent immediately on brand new accounts. As a, I'm not a teenager, mid 30s dude. That's what they send people, and so I have felt like it's probably kind of important for me to have some opinions about that kind of existence, about that sphere of influence. And I guess that the thing that I wanted to at least try and talk about at this point was this idea that I had seen a lot that it's interesting, and I could see the appeal, but I also think it seriously misses the mark, and it's this idea of men as protectors. You're supposed to be a protector of your friends and your family and your community. Right? It's this idea that men are supposed to be this idea of men as brave people going out and protecting and doing the difficult things, and like I get that. I see why people feel like that is an important idea of what being masculine is, right? You are using your manliness, your masculinity, in this very traditional sense of like being the big tough guy, and you are using that masculinity to help people. And in that, you feel even more comfortable and confident in how manly and masculine you are. And I like on the face of it, right? That's great. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. How is being manly and helping people bad, right? Like, what's wrong with that? I think the problem is that completely misses the reality that the entire concept revolves around you. It revolves around how you feel, how you want to act, and how you want other people to feel about what you've done. It ignores how you are impacting others. It ignores how other people are feeling, and it ignores the situations which you create. And I think that is deeply problematic. Now, let me tell you a story. So, my wife and I used to live in the downtown of a mid to large size metropolitan area, and I used to be able to walk to the grocery store. She was in training at the time, so she was working insane hours. So it was not infrequent that I would go to the grocery store 10:30, 11 o'clock at night to get some ice cream. So 10:30, I walk over to the grocery store. It's, a 3, 4, 5 minute walk. I get my ice cream. There's not a ton of people. It's 10:30 on a Tuesday. So I buy my ice cream, and in front of me is a young woman, maybe early 20s. So I'm in a hurry. I'm trying to get home, spend time with my wife. So I start moving pretty good as soon as I get out of the store, and without thinking much about it, I get pretty close to her pretty quick. And as soon as she notices me, her entire demeanor and body language like palpably change. immediately. She immediately pulls her, her grocery bag and her purse closer to her. She immediately puts her hand in her purse and then is walking at a slight angle so that she can do her best to keep an eye on me without looking like she's watching me. So from there, right, I can make one of two choices. I can decide, no, I am your protector, right? I am here to make sure that you're safe. That is my manly job. My masculine duty is to make sure that you're safe. And so I'm just going to follow you home to make sure that you get home okay. Or I can recognize that clearly my presence is not helpful and do my best to give you as much space as is necessary to make sure that you feel safe. Right? Those are two completely different thoughts. And I think, not right now, but I think in general there is a really important conversation to be had about why she responded so strongly and so negatively just to my existence, and how that feels as a man to have that response be pushed upon you, not infrequently. I think it's a bigger conversation, but I think that if you want to hear me talk about that, later, I'm supposed to tell you to like and friend and subscribe and chat in the comments and put the little heart emojis and whatever the engagement, the algorithm, whatever the algorithm wants. Really, the algorithm is the new god. But anyway, as I was saying, two completely different ideas, but they both kind of come from that same place, right? It's about trying to help someone, but one is actually about someone else, and one is about how I want to feel, or probably more accurately, how I want people to feel about me. And I think that really kind of hits at the core of what this whole thing is, right? It is about using your behavior. It is about externalizing an ideology so that you can reinforce how you feel, or really how you want to feel about yourself, right? It is doing something so that you can think that other people see you in a certain way so that you can feel that way, right? If I do this manly thing, other people will see me as manly, thus I am manly, I feel manly. And again, on the face, right, this isn't a terrible idea. There's plenty of evidence-based psychology, people with depression or chronic pain, if you can find the energy and the motivation to exercise a few times a week, right, statistically you are more likely to feel better, right? Externalizing an idea does help internalize. The problem is when you externalize something like this, something that you don't actually believe in order to feel a certain way that you don't necessarily want to feel, you end up doing things that you don't either understand or that you actually don't like. Look, don't tell anybody, but I hate football. I think football is the most boring sport, but it is super masculine, right? It is super manly to have a bunch of beers and eat wings and watch the game with the boys. And oh my God, I don't care. I do not care about football at all. It's dumb. But some people like it. And I can totally see how someone who is not comfortable in their own skin, who is not comfortable with their own masculinity, taking football on as a personality trait so that they can feel more masculine, so that they could do a thing that they think is more masculine. So they feel that way. Other people perceive them that way. And I think that this is such a dangerous trap for people. I can totally see how, especially young, lost guys can see a video of some juiced up meathead who says, well, you buy my supplements and then degrade women and then go to the gym a couple of times a week and now you're manly. And I could see how you can hear that and feel like that's the solution, right? It's that simple. It's all you need to do. And then I feel better about myself. And you go and you do those things and you pretend that makes you feel better because you've done them, right? You're supposed to feel better. So you tell yourself you feel better. And part of this is, we don't teach young men how to think critically about their emotions. We don't teach young men how to stop and think about what it is that they're feeling, why they are feeling that way, and like what is an appropriate response to that. And part of this is we as a society overvalue a very narrow and very specific view of masculinity. So you have this epidemic of Manosphere, chronically online, meathead man babies, because we didn't tell them how to think about how they were feeling, but we did tell them that the best thing to do is to listen to the loudest, most confident man in the room. And so we've created this situation where they have access to an incredible number of loud, confident meatheads and no skills to understand just how dumb these guys are. And it's problematic in a lot of ways, and it's scary in a lot of ways. And I think that we see this playing out. We see it playing out nationally, right? To kind of bring it back to this idea of men as a protector, right? We see people all over the country in masks grabbing people off of the streets as completely untrained, federal officers, because they think that they are protecting their community. They have been told that they are protecting their country, right? It is this idea that they are helping, right? That people forget that the Nazis didn't think they were the bad guys, right? The Nazis were just protecting German blood and soil. They were just defending Germany from communist indoctrination and Jewish social subversion. Like they weren't doing anything wrong, right? They were protecting themselves. And it's this idea that you have to do these aggressive things in order to be helpful. It's just right. You can look at it so obviously as just insane, but I can also see how easily you get caught up in that trap of doing things because you want to feel manly, doing things because other people have told you that it's the right thing, doing things because it's what you've been told or what you've internalized that it's a thing that you need to do in order to feel comfortable and confident about yourself, right? And that very quickly becomes, well, we were just following orders. I was just doing this thing that I thought was right. I was doing this thing that I was told was right. We have these army of untrained meatheads out in the country, and they are killing people. And they're doing it because they think it's right. They're doing it because they've been told that it's the right thing to do. And that's where this ends up. And that's what scares the shit out of me. It's so easy to just convince people to do something if it makes them feel better. And it doesn't matter if it actually does make them feel better. If you convince them that it will, they'll do it. And it's sad that that is where masculinity is in this country, that we just, it is so much more comfortable to be an angry, violent, hateful person because that's what makes you more manly, than it is to, you know, give a woman some space when walking home at night. Right? It's so much more manly to be aggressive and to be a protector than it is to just recognize that another human being has emotions. Right? You can't grab a random human being off the street and throw them in the back of a car, and just take them to some undisclosed location and put them in a cage with dozens of other people and no food and water and no medical care and no bathroom, and also see them as a human being. You have to be entirely focused on how you're feeling. I'm sorry. I really didn't mean for this to get so dark, but that the state of America at the moment is significantly intertwined with people's perception and understanding of masculinity in this moment, and people's perception of masculinity. A lot of people voted for Donald Trump because they thought the big, strong, confident man who said he was going to fix everything was actually going to fix everything. And hopefully people are beginning to realize that that's not what's going on. You have these scared goons out there trying to be these masculine protectors of their community with zero understanding that they are actually terrorizing women and children, the very people that you are supposed to be idealizing the protection of. I think that there is so much misunderstanding about what people actually want and what people need. And there are so many young men out there who just want to feel comfortable and they don't know how, and we haven't given them the tools. And I understand that frustration. And the people who have reached out to them are awful. They're awful. They have just used young men to be tools for their own, hateful, ignorant, pseudo-masculinism. And so I guess that's my opinion. I guess that's how I feel about it. I don't think that people should be afraid of the idea of being, of protecting somebody. But I think that people should be wary of thinking about how you should do something for someone when you're not actually thinking about how they're feeling. So I think we, as men, need to do a better job talking in general, talking to each other in general. My New Year's resolution this year is to be better about just texting my friends. I'm not great at it. I just think that we need to be better about talking to each other in general, but I think that we need to be more comfortable talking to each other about how we feel about being men, how we feel about being masculine. I think that we have been taught such a narrow scope of what masculinity is supposed to be, that we have to teach ourselves. We have to teach each other how to have a much more healthy and productive view of what it is to be a man. I tell my friends I love them. I do. I don't. It's kind of weird, but I also don't think it should be weird to tell someone that they're special to you. I've known some of my friends for 30 years. That's special. It's a long time. So I think, you know, text your friends, text your father, text your mother. Tell someone who is important to you that they're important. Or go find a therapist. I don't know. I'm just some dude. I'm not a mental health professional. I am just some dude who sees something wrong. And I just have to say something about it. So, take care of each other. I love you. I'll see you soon.